Good evening, y'all. I wanted to show you my tomato bisque with shrimp recipe. So I'm gonna make that for you right now, and I hope you enjoy it. I have dressed in red because I'm making tomato soup, and I have my red utensils out because I bought red utensils, not because they match, but it doesn't hurt, does it? Anyway, so let me show you what I'm doing over here. I have got about a tablespoon of garlic and a half of a chopped sweet Vidalia onion, mixing and kind of getting translucent in the pot here. And I've chosen a stock pot. And so when this has got just a couple of more minutes, and I'm gonna add probably about a half a cup of flour to this, and that's gonna be my roux. What is a roux? I've heard that all my life. What's a roux? R-O-U-X. R-O-U-X it's pronounced roux, and it's really just a starter. It's really a flour and some kind of fat stirred together to make the beginning of a soup or a sauce. So when I add the flour in slowly, and I'm gonna stir it in pretty slowly, and I'm gonna reduce the heat to a low setting and continue to stir that until it's very, very smooth. And so that's going to be the starter of this tomato bisque soup that I'm going to make. And because I'm making this because, well, it's red soup, it's red food, it's Christmas. It's a little cool out there in most places around the country. Here, it happened to be about 60 degrees today, so it really wasn't that cool here in Wilmington, North Carolina, but it still feels like fall, and it still feels like I should be having tomato soup with a grilled cheese sandwich. That sounds good, doesn't it? Does to me. And if you're cooking single, like me, you can have a couple of bowls of soup, and then you can put the rest of it, you can take it to work with you, it heats up well, and it really doesn't, what I'm doing really doesn't make that much. So you're not gonna have a lot left over. So, one of the problems with cooking and being single is that we feel like that we look at a recipe and it cooks so much food that we get tired. I mean, I hate leftovers actually. But so I'm trying to always invite people over or give it away if I've made too much. But lately I've been trying to skim down the recipes. So what else you will need, and what I've done over here in advance while this is getting ready, is I have taken like 5 ripe tomatoes, and I've cored them, which means cutting out that ugly top part and the bottom part. And I've cut them into fourths. I've taken 5 of these tomatoes and I've put them in my blender right there. And I have blended them up to make my own little tomato sauce. And then you're gonna need about 4 cups of chicken broth, believe it or not. 4 cups of chicken broth. You're gonna need, what else are you gonna need? You're gonna need 2 other tomatoes that you're gonna chop up like I've done here. And what I've done is I've taken all the seeds on these 2 tomatoes in particular, I've taken the seeds out, And I've just sliced the tomatoes and chopped them. So all that I have is the meat of the tomato left. Because that's going to provide that's what's really going to make it taste homemade. Because when you're eating the soup, you're going to run across this great texture of just a little bit of tomato. And you might run across a little bit of the onion too, which is really, really amazing in this recipe. So if you can get all that prepared ahead of time, like I've done, and then this recipe is super, super easy and fun. And you'll also need about 1 cup of heavy cream, a dash of white pepper. And what is a dash? A dash. That means you just shake it over it once or twice. That's a dash. That's a dash for me. Because, if you're a dash, that's it. Quick and easy, a dash. Nobody ever really told me what a dash is, so that's my definition of a dash. I figured it was something very quick. I've had a lot of dashes in my life, you know what I'm saying? Hello, I'm single. Anyway, then you'll need a very small amount of kosher salt. Why kosher? Because it's Hanukkah, and I'm making it during Hanukkah. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to add this flour that I have measured out, and I'm going to add it very slowly, and I'm going to start stirring it, and it's swirling around. My pot is turning around because I'm on this flat surface pan, and I'm going to get a pot holder so I can hold my pot at the same time. I'm going to kind of tuck that down in there like that. And look at that. I can do this. I can do this. That's what you keep saying to yourself. I can do this. I can do this. So this is, I'm going to turn the heat down onto low while I do this. This needs a little moisture. I believe. So I'm going to put the rest of this flour in. And again, that's 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour, not the self-rising kind. Don't do that to yourself. You might ruin it. I don't know what will happen, but I don't want my tomato soup to blow up, right? So I can't imagine if it were to rise. So I'm going to put about 1/4 cup of this chicken broth in this mixture, in this roux that I've got going on. And I'm going to show you what this is going to look like. I'm just going to go ahead and put 16 ounces or 1 can of this chicken broth. Go ahead, and I'm going to stir this up. And this is going to cook, and I'm going to stir vigorously. Vigorously, it says. For about another 5 minutes, actually. So, and taking, the chicken broth will, when you're smoothing this roux out, it will actually take all the lumps, any lumps in that the flour has created out. And you want to do it very slow because you want the starchiness of the flour to cook out of this. So that's why you want to reduce it to low, and you keep stirring it. Oh my God, my spoon is red too. And my soup will be red soon, but it's not red yet because we haven't added the tomatoes. But I did want you to see what this looks like. Oh my gosh, it almost looks like mashed potatoes right now. Which, oh God, I love mashed potatoes. That's another day. I got some good mashed potato recipes and ideas. But we're not going to digress because we're going to keep with our soup. And this is going to be awesome. So this is really smooth now. There are really no lumps. Any of the little lumps or things that I see in here happen to be the pieces of the onion. So that's cool. I love onion, and I use a Vidalia onion. Does anybody know what a Vidalia onion is? I know my people in Statesboro know, and I know my people in Savannah know, and most of the people in Georgia would know. And all of you who've transplanted other places, and maybe you have heard of Vidalia, but Vidalia is a town about an hour and a half outside of Savannah, east, like you're going toward Atlanta, and it's about 30 minutes from Statesboro. About 20 if you know what you're doing, and you know some of the cops along the way. But nevertheless, Vidalia is very, in Glenville, are famous for their sweet onions. Texas has some sweet onions, but I do use a sweet onion in this recipe because I think with the acidity from the tomatoes that it makes for a great soup and a great touch. And if you've got people in your family that are like, ooh, onions, or small children, they're really not going to taste it. In fact, it adds a sweetness to it. So they might like it, actually. Let me see. Where was I? I need more of the chicken broth. So I had 1 can of chicken broth, and then I had this container. It's the same brand. Who knew? But I'm going to add this chicken broth. I'm going to add just a little bit at a time. I'm going to keep smoothing it out. Yes, yum. This is going to be so creamy and good. Oh my gosh. I was inspired to figure out how to make homemade tomato soup when I went to Charleston, South Carolina, of all places. And I went to this restaurant called Magnolia. And I was there for a conference. But we scooted out to this restaurant that was supposed to be one of the best restaurants back in the year 2000, 17 years ago. I've been making this soup. And it was the most wonderful soup and experience. And I thought, you know what? I can do this. I really can do this. I should be able to do this at home. I mean, it's actually, hello, it's tomato soup. It's not like it's something very complicated. So let's take a look at this. It's very, very smooth. You can see that, huh? Got a little bit of the onion there. But it works out very smooth if you keep stirring it. But yeah, this restaurant was great. So after lunch, I walk around the corner to a bookstore that was adjacent to the Omni Hotel, where I met Barbara Streisand, by the way. I digress. But anyway, so I went to this bookstore, and there sat the chef of the restaurant. He wasn't even at the restaurant when I was eating the soup, which is crazy. But he was there signing cookbooks. So I bought a cookbook from him. I have never looked at this cookbook. I have no idea. I don't read cookbooks. No, I do. I'm just kidding. But, can we all dust off our cookbooks? Hello, single people out there, dust them off. The problem with the cookbooks is it makes so much food. Every recipe, 4, 6 people, 8 people. What do they think I've got? A crew of people here I'm trying to feed? Hello, one. Right? And it's so hard. I mean, I know cutting down a recipe is multiplying, dividing, adding, and subtracting. My dear Aunt Sally. Multiplying, dividing, adding, and subtracting. But it is hard because it involves taste and ingredients. It's not just about the numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and just add the rest of this. Now that I've got all of the kinks worked out of this flour and this roux, I'm going to add the rest of my chicken broth. I'm back, my trash can is over there. So I'm gonna go ahead and, I like to clean up along the way. I'm neurotic about that. I don't wanna sit down to dinner and then look over at all the mess. There's something about that, it just drives me crazy. So if I can clean up along the way, then that makes being single in the kitchen a lot easier. Because the last thing I wanna do after I get up from the meal is to clean it up. But you have to. Because there's no one else here. Right? So I'm gonna cut this heat back up to a medium heat since I've added the rest of this room temperature chicken broth. I'm gonna heat it up. And so while this is heating up, I will tell you a little story, because I have 1,000 stories, 1,000. So I'm in this hotel, right? And I check in, and they don't have a room. You ever been in that situation? You booked through the conference, you did everything you thought you were supposed to do right, and you get up to this fancy hotel, the Omni Hotel. At the time it was, I don't know what they have now, but this was the biggest thing going on in Charleston. So in downtown near the market. So I walk up, there's no rooms. So this hotel had 7 or 8 floors or whatever. So Barbara Streisand happened to have the entire top floor rented out, because she was making a movie in town. I don't know, I forget the name of the movie, it's so old, but I'm sure it was good. Everything she does is fabulous, right? So anyway, they had to call her. They knew that she was not using all of the rooms on that floor. So they had to call her and ask permission and beg her to let them rent one of the rooms on the floor where she had the whole floor released. So I can say, and they gave that room to me, hello. I can say that I slept on the same floor with Barbara Streisand one night. Not in the room, but me and Babs, we were together. And I actually met her, because she was sitting out in the lobby, because that top floor had a special lobby and all this other kind of stuff. She was probably in the presidential room or whatever they call it. The Nikki Haley room now. Oh! So, anyway, I had to go up. I go up to these people and, and I introduce myself. And I told her that I appreciated that I was the one that, that they gave the room to. And I really appreciated that, because there was a snafu, as it were, in the room reservation. And she said, oh, no problem at all, in her best accent of whatever it is. And anyway, but I left her alone. She was sitting in the lobby by herself, probably single. Probably should have asked her to marry me, right? Single. Anyway, so that's my Barbra Streisand story. Back to the recipe. So this is heated up now. I'm gonna give it another good stir. You can't even see these onions. I mean, seriously, if somebody is freaking out because there's onions in the recipe, if you're freaking out because there's onions in the recipe, you're not gonna see them. They have disappeared practically, okay? So do not freak out on me because there are onions in this tomato bisque recipe. It's just gonna make it sweet and delicious. So I'm gonna take my fresh tomatoes right from a farmer's market that my sister found in North Carolina here. She went to a farmer's market 3 days ago and brought me back these delicious, delicious tomatoes. And I hope they're delicious. They look so good and fresh, and they were locally grown. So I'm hoping that they're gonna be delish, delish, delish. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Hello. So I've added in all this tomato. Oh yeah, you guys, this is turning a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful pink. Beautiful pink. It's just gonna be delicious. Now I'm gonna add in my salt. Again, about a teaspoon of kosher salt. And watch me dash. Wanna watch me dash? I'm gonna dash the white pepper. Dash, dash. I dashed. So that's gonna be your white pepper. And I'm gonna stir this up pretty good. And then I'm gonna lean the camera in so you can see what's going on here. I'm gonna bring this in a little higher temperature and bring it to a simmer. And what's gonna happen is, here you go. Doesn't that look great? Oh my gosh. I just love good tomato soup. What's gonna happen though, when I turn the heat up, it might froth a little bit. You might see a foam develop on the top of the soup. And if that happens, I'm just gonna skim it off. That's all you have to do. Just take it off. It looks weird, take it off. And then, if it happens again, you take it off again. So this is really smelling good. The garlic is coming through. The fresh tomatoes they really smell like they have really come right off the vine. And what I did with those tomatoes, you can do two things. I like to use the whole tomato. When I put them in the blender, I cut them into fourths, I put skin, everything in there, seeds, everything. The only thing I did was take the core out. But you can, some people will do this if they're making their own tomato sauce. They'll act like they're canning the tomatoes. And when you can the tomatoes, you can actually boil the tomatoes put them in boiling water, submerge them, kind of serrate them around the edge, and then kind of like start a peel of the tomato, but don't peel the tomato, and then you put them into boiling water. Let them boil, and then about 5 minutes. And then you put them into ice water And then you leave them in ice water for about 5 or 10 minutes till they cool. And then the peel of the tomato actually starts to peel off and makes it much easier to take the peeling off the tomato. And then you can put that in the blender if you want to. Well, I like the skin, and if you blend it up really good, like I did, then you can use the seeds, you can use the peeling, everything goes in. The only thing you do is rinse the tomatoes well. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add a cup of heavy cream. Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes. So I've got my heavy cream. This is a fresh little container. And, okay, I searched for 20 minutes for my liquid measuring cup. It has disappeared. And that's just what happens sometimes. So a half a cup is a half a cup, and I'm using this. So, but I need a cup, so I'm gonna use this twice. So here I am. I'm going to slowly incorporate this heavy cream. And this is what's going to bring back memories of your childhood. Because wasn't that tomato soup that your mom made, which was probably right out of the can, my mother, open up the can, we're having tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwiches for lunch. But as we got older and more sophisticated, we thought, I can do what Campbell's does, and I can do it better. So I'm gonna put the other half to make 1 full cup of cream into this mix. And I'm gonna continue to stir this. You can use a whisk if you want to at this point, because I don't have any of the big pieces of the tomato in yet. But I love my red spoon with my red shirt and red tomato soup. So, when you're single, you think about these things. What if somebody comes over and catches me cooking? What's it gonna look like? This looks so good. I'm telling you, this looks good. Now I will probably, with the other thing that I'm gonna do while we're waiting, and the last thing that I do is, the next thing would be to put the chopped tomatoes into the soup and begin to let that cook down. But that's gonna add, those little pieces of tomato is gonna add the meat of the soup. It's gonna gives it some, texture. And then, fresh basil. I'm gonna cut up this fresh basil, and then that's gonna be the last thing, next to last thing, that I put into the soup. Cleaning up, throwing away, getting ready. So because I have 1 cutting board, actually I have 2, but I have 1 out. So the next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these beautiful chopped tomatoes that match my shirt, and I'm gonna push these right into the soup, just like that. Easy peasy, as my sister would say. Oh, this is good. This is looking really good. Let me show you what's going on here. So I've just got a few of the pieces, okay? This is gonna cook down, and while that does that, I'm going to take probably 2 good spears of this basil. And I'm telling you, I can already smell how delicious this basil is going to be. It smells so good. I'm going to give it 1 rinse over here at the sink. You couldn't see that, but I rinsed them off. And because I'm cooking single, I'm also filming this single. There's nobody here helping me. Hello for that. But I'm gonna give this a nice chop. Maybe I can get this closer. Look at that, who knew I have a kitchen? I am so excited. I'm telling you what, the last kitchen I had was so small, you couldn't make water in that kitchen. I'm serious. I struggled to even put a glass of water together. It was so tight. A little galley kitchen, and now I've moved. I have this big kitchen. It's big for me. It's not big for everybody, but it's big for me. It's the next step up. You know what I'm saying? You ever felt like you've taken the next step up in something? I have taken the next step up in kitchen, which makes me motivated to cook and to show you guys what I have been working on for the last 30 years. And that is just cooking. I've lived all over the country. I've traveled all over this country. And I have got to share. Not share, but share. Oh my gosh, I have to tell you one share story. So it's really not a share story, but there's many share stories, but the funniest one is I'm sitting outside of My China, which is a restaurant in the Westville Shopping Center in San Francisco. And I'm waiting on a table. And this is supposed to be a fabulous restaurant, right? Authentic Chinese food. I've got my best Chinese friend with me, Jin Young. If you're out there, you remember this, and it is so funny. Anyway, so the host comes out and yells, "Share, party of 2." And I mean to tell you, there were like 30 people waiting in line for this restaurant, waiting around, sitting around, doing whatever, talking. I'm telling you, their necks snapped. Everybody was like, "Share, share." They thought Cher was there in a mall. Do you think Cher goes to the mall? I don't think Cher goes to the mall, personally. But anyway, so that's my Cher story. So getting back to, I have to share this recipe, but not share it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to do my impersonation of Cher. So I have got this wonderful basil that smells amazing. If you haven't smelt fresh basil in a long time, go buy a Yankee Candle or something if you don't want to actually cook. That's what I used to do. In that little small kitchen, I just buy a Yankee Candle that smelled like the food. Cookies, basil, thyme, rosemary. But so that is the next thing that I'm going to do, is add this fresh basil to this wonderful, wonderful soup I have going on. And look at the beautiful color of this tomato soup. No, I didn't want it to match. Oh, and it has a little bit of the meat there. It is not getting that foamy white froth up yet due to the heat and the cream. But when it does, I'm gonna cut it down on low. And I suppose I could probably go ahead and do that now because I really don't want it to froth up. But it happened once before, and all you have, it's not hurting anything. But if it does, you just skim it off the top and you cut the heat down. Right? So I'm going to cut this down from a medium to a medium low heat. Let me take this back over here. And now I'm going to take this wonderful, like 2 little sprigs of healthy bunch of basil. This is probably about 1/4 of a cup altogether, not packed down. So there we have it. But I'm gonna stir this basil into the soup. Oh, look how great that looks. Oh my gosh. Absolutely delicious. And this is something you're gonna be able to use all week long. And when it's cold out, oh, there's nothing better than a cup or a bowl of tomato soup. And it's so easy. If somebody tragically drops by without telling you, and they conveniently come by at dinner time, break out the soup. That's what you do. No, I'm not going out to a $60 restaurant with you, $100, drop a bottle of wine on you, and then you have alligator arms and can't pay for the bill. Oh no, we're having soup at my place. And if you don't like that, well, then you can stay conveniently for about 10 minutes and then get up and leave. Because I was single when you got here, right? I'll be single when you leave. So this looks amazing and it smells great. So the next thing that I'm going to do is what I've told you and I mentioned earlier was that I'm going to add, because I'm near the coast and I can do that, I'm going to add shrimp to this. And what I did is I went out to the grocery store and I got 12 shrimp, 12, because I'm just one person. And I have these shrimp right here, fresh shrimp. Fresh shrimp from Indonesia. I asked the guy where they're from. I'm sitting right by the Atlantic Ocean and they went all the way to Indonesia to get these shrimp. Whatever. I don't care where they're from. I love shrimp. So they were flash frozen, I'm sure. And they were brought over here. And all of a sudden, I have Indonesian shrimp. But there are fresh markets around. But when you're single and you're craving something, you go out and you buy whatever the grocery store has. And you know what's funny is they have huge bags of frozen shrimp. And then they have the shrimp that have been de-thawed or thawed out, and they're laid out in this case, right, for everybody to look at them. They're the same shrimp. Yeah, the guy told me. Yeah. All he does is when they get those frozen shrimp in from Indonesia, he takes them out of the package, they thaw out, he deveins them, and puts them out on display. They're the same shrimp as the frozen ones in the bag. Don't let them be fooled. And they do this at Publix, they do it at Harris Teeter, they do it at Kroger, which owns Harris Teeter. So they're all the same. They do all the same. The only way you can get fresh shrimp is actually go to a fish market and get fresh shrimp. Yeah, that's what you have to do. The ones in the grocery store, Indonesia, Vietnam, I'm telling you, those people are over there shrimping their hearts out. Anyway, so my pet peeve when I go to a restaurant, I don't know about you, it's probably why I'm still single, because I'm so neurotic. Every time I get a shrimp dish, they leave the tails on for me to pinch off. What's up with that? The cook can't do it? So I am not going to put these shrimp in my soup with the tail still on. So I just pinch the ends off and it comes out easy. And so anybody who's eating my soup does not have to peel their own shrimp or come across shrimp tails when they're eating my soup. That is so tragic. So this is actually, I'm going to cut this heat down on low. And it was almost about to simmer, which is okay. And the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse these shrimp off in water, even though I trust the guy at the supermarket on how and everything he did once these shrimp got from Indonesia to America. Shrimp can get into the country pretty easy, huh? Yeah. Don't build a wall over that. What would we do if we didn't have Indonesian and Vietnam shrimp? Because I don't think there's enough shrimp in the world. So everybody has to contribute. So we have this shellfish, which I know is not kosher. I'm sorry, folks. I know it's Hanukkah. And technically, you're not supposed to eat anything, if you keep kosher, you're not supposed to eat anything that doesn't have a skin, scales, and a fin. If it doesn't have scales and a fin, it's not kosher. So that cuts out all shellfish, including lobster. Think about it. But I don't keep kosher. So we're adding these shrimp. So I'm gonna just drop these in there. Shrimp cook really easily, and they're gonna turn a beautiful pink color that's gonna match this soup, because it's all about matching. Now you can add, the other thing that you could do that I have done before, and that is take crab meat and do lump crab meat on top at the very, very end. Crab meat that's already been steamed, of course, obviously. But tonight, I'm feeling kind of shrimpy. Need some shrimp. So I'm just dropping 12 shrimp into this soup. And the shrimp are you could add more if you want to have a shrimp in every bite, but it's not shrimp soup, it's tomato soup. So, but there is a case for having more shrimp, but there you might have some people come over or drop by inconveniently to eat your food who don't like shrimp or don't want to eat the shrimp, but the flavor is okay. It's not going to add a lot of flavor, but it adds the texture when you bite into it, and I love shrimp. So, but you could actually be able to serve this soup, because there's not a lot of shrimp in there, the way I have done it. You could actually serve the soup without shrimp. And then for those who have shrimp, you scoop out the shrimp. Or you can add more shrimp when you're heating it later on, for people who must have a shrimp in every bite. And some people use the small little bay shrimp, but I think that's just so weird. I think they should have let those little shrimp grow a little more. I don't like those. They're kind of weird. They remind me of popcorn shrimp, full of breading. So I like a little larger shrimp, not the gigantic shrimp like on the West Coast, and they end up calling them prawns. But in the South, we just call them shrimp. And so that's what I've added. So these are cooking nicely. And, I'm going to cook this down on low for about 15 or 20 more minutes. The shrimp will be done, and I will serve up my tomato bisque soup. So there you have it. Was that not fun or what? And I'm telling you, it's easy. All you have to do is have the ingredients. And you've got tomato soup for your cold, wintry day or gloomy day. Tomato soup is great on a gloomy day, don't you think? And then I'm going to make a grilled cheese sandwich. Yep, with fresh. I'm going to actually bought a block of cheese, and I'm going to make it with Wisconsin sharp cheddar cheese. I'm going to butter both sides of the bread. I'm going to put it in a nonstick pan. And before you know it, in 5 minutes, I'll have a grilled cheese sandwich to go along and dip into this tomato, basil, shrimp bisque soup. I love it. I hope you do too. Have a great day.